Matthew, no free ads.
No free ads. Well, I won't tell you what brand of tea I'm drinking. Because there's no free ads.
Right.
Didn't someone ask what coffee I liked?
Yeah, but no free ads. So
No, of course.
yeah. Except for, well, this isn't a free ad though, because they did give us money once. Elm. Sorry,
Yeah.
what was the place
Elm
called?
Coffee.
Elm Coffee.
In Seattle, which I
Yeah.
will be visiting when I go to Seattle, hopefully next year or this year.
There we go.
Hmm.
There we go. We're finally gonna get the
out to Elm Coffee Roasters.
I'm finally gonna get to ask Pete Carroll about why they use a 2-eye nose tackle.
We're finally gonna get the C Mike MFB crossover that we've all been waiting for.
Go get some Tom Carr.
Tomka's so good, man.
Oh, I've noticed you're calling it Tomka now, but only when you're live.
Tomka.
What was I calling it before?
Tom Carr.
I've always said Tomka. What?
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing?
I guess when you write it, I read it as Tom Carr. So,
I mean, maybe it is pronounced that way, and I'm butchering it.
I don't think so. Tomka sounds better.
All right. Well, real quick. Sorry for the false alarm earlier tonight. They were talking about doing the show tomorrow, and I was like, "All right, here we go. It's happening. It's happening tomorrow." So I'm gonna tweet that thing out. And then Matty was like, "Griff, can you do 7?" And I was like, "Wait, for tonight? I already tweeted." And then, oopsie, that was embarrassing. So
yeah, sometimes it's good to be proactive, like drafting a wide receiver 3 who could potentially be a wide receiver 2. And then on other occasions,
no.
Right.
You delete the tweet.
Yeah. On other occasions, you end up drafting D. Eskridge.
Let's be nice.
On other occasions, you draft Chris Harper. There we go.
Right.
That's further removed. That's not as mean, right?
Yeah. Why did they do that? I was not as familiar with the whole roster deal back then.
So that was what? Was that 2013 that they did that?
Yes.
So
in that pretty bad draft overall.
So they had Sydney and Doug.
I guess they're thinking it's like a Sydney Jermaine kind of crossover deal.
They still had Golden. They had traded for Percy by that point. And then like Jermaine was on the roster, but he had only played like 2 games, I think, at the end of 2012.
Right, he was there.
Yeah. So yeah, they had depth. I don't know why they did that. That was weird.
Always compete, baby.
Always compete.
Speaking of football players, I got into a conversation with hold on. Micah Kaiser.
Okay.
Micah Kaiser.
Oh, Micah Kaiser from the Rams, or used to play for the Rams at least.
Yeah, he's now playing for the Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did you have a conversation with him?
Well, just guys talking ball.
Okay.
Talking about how the Giants released Saquon Barkley a lot out of the backfield against Minnesota and how it was cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
Okay, it was good. Okay, just like judging by your face, I thought like it went poorly.
No, that's just a football face,
Football face, yeah,
football guy.
Sure. Yeah, football face.
Yeah.
Wouldn't know anything about that. Yeah.
Well. Okay.
Griff, doing okay? How are you recovering from Sunday?
I've been watching a lot of World War I documentaries.
World War I. Wow, that's so 1914.
Yeah. You know what I didn't know though is that Russia sent a bunch of soldiers over to the Western Front toward the end of the war, like in 1917, to fight with the French. And And I didn't know they relocated a bunch of their personnel over there. I just thought never occurred to me. But there were Russian soldiers on the Western Front, World War One. That was a little.
That
piece
is
of
very
trivia
interesting.
I didn't know
Interesting
about.
how that is. What documentary was that? Where that was you learned that?
That one was the Great War in Numbers.
Ah.
There is this 10-part documentary that I've seen on it that was on this YouTube channel called Timeline. And then they took it down, but it was like the best World War One documentary I've seen. It was really good. It went deep into like the politics of each country during the war, especially like in Germany, stuff like that. That was really interesting.
Griff, what are your top 3 war movies?
Top 3 war movies?
Yeah.
Is basic answer, but Saving Private Ryan has to be up there.
Okay.
The Thin Red Line. It's another one. And then also a basic answer, but Apocalypse Now. That's
a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you guys?
Did you like 1917?
Yeah, that was great. That was very good.
I saw that twice because it came out when I was still working at a theater. So I just went back a couple times. I was like, this movie's
I hated it.
Really? Why?
Did you like the fake one shot?
It wasn't grim enough.
Oh.
Yeah, well, because it was a different because it was just following one soldier, right, or two, but then one.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a regular war film, and that
spoilers.
Yeah.
The continuous cut,
3-year-old movie.
The lack of the cut. Yeah.
So did you didn't like how it was like a fake one shot? You weren't a fan of that?
No, that wasn't the issue for me. It was just it was too happy.
Too happy.
Too happy.
Like it was
Even
too triumphant.
It wasn't that happy. It was very triumphant. Yeah.
Sure.
It didn't come across necessarily as anti, or as you guys would say, anti-war, as some other.
Well, hold on a second though, because he
did
prevents at the very end when Benedict Cumberbatch is like, "All right, you saved him for now, but we're just going to send him over the top in a couple of weeks. They're all going to die anyway."
Yes, which was good. Have you seen Benedict Cumberbatch? He was in the news like 2 weeks ago. Did you see why?
Oh yeah, wasn't it something like his ancestors owned like a plantation or like a slave plantation? That's pretty bad, man.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's a lot of that too.
And he it's not his fault, but
he's probably benefited though from the.
Wasn't
No, I you didn't let me finish. He does
bad.
He does have he could play in a movie a plantation owner.
Oh,
and in fact, he willingly chose to be in 12 Years a Slave.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. He was in that movie.
So it's really weird.
Yeah.
Didn't Edward Norton also find out that his ancestors owned slaves and he submitted some apology a week or two ago? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Matty, question for you though. Back on 1917, whose famous English actors cameo did you like more in that movie? Benedict Cumberbatch's or Colin Firth's?
Well, that was the other problem for me.
The cameos?
I didn't like either of the cameos.
Like you didn't like their characters, or you didn't like the acting
didn't like
of it?
It is kind of weird that they were cameos. It was kind of like low-key some MCU shit in a way. It was look, guys, it's Benedict Cumberbatch.
I mean, obviously, I'm not familiar
it makes sense,
with the MCU franchise.
It makes sense though, because it signals to the audience all the officers are these posh, upperclassmen, and then all the main characters, the grunts, are no names in real life, relatively. Whoa. So in that sense, it kind of works.
Yeah, whoa. I mean, you might be giving them too much credit, but you could be right.
But okay, to your point though about how it was too happy though. I mean, the whole thing that we're calling First character is we got to save these men. In real life, they didn't give a shit. They're like, whatever. It's a bad tactical advantage. We don't want to. It's bad tactics to send them over now. We'll kill them next week. What were you gonna say though?
Well, when I was in Lille, there was a statue to Ferdinand Foch.
And who is this Ferdinand Foch fella?
You don't know Ferdinand Foch?
Sounds
I think we
familiar.
talked about this on the
Dude,
podcast.
I mean, history has a lot of Ferdinands, man. How can I keep track of all of them?
He was a big time French general.
Take me out.
Yeah, one of the big dogs, you know.
Yeah. So many of the French World War I generals during World War II ended up aligning themselves with the Vichy French. So like they were considered war heroes at the time, and then they just, ruined their legacy.
I think Foch died before all of that, but he was very, very aggressive and, loss of life.
Yeah.
Kind of just brazen.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's like all the World War I generals that actually made any headway, they were just the ones most willing to get most of their soldiers killed. Like anyone that actually like made a dent into the enemy line, it was just they just threw bodies at them until they overwhelmed them.
Yeah. The other thing is Foch, I think at the end of the war, refused the Germans were wanting to negotiate a peace. So
did you guys see All Quiet on the Western Front? Oh yeah, okay, that's Foch. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I haven't seen that yet because that's a grim one, right? So
it's really grim.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say really quick. The actor they got to play Foch is like a dead ringer. That's like legitimately him.
Oh, they got Foch. They got a Focher.
They got the real Foch. Yeah. Perhaps one of his like descendants, a Fochling.
A Fochling. Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched this film. Now I can't remember the name of it, but it was Danish language.
The Forgotten Battle. Was it on Netflix?
Yeah, it might be that.
Yeah.
Where
I watched that too.
They have the mosquitoes going to bomb the Gestapo headquarters in Copenhagen.
Oh, I don't think it was that one.
No, I haven't seen that.
Are you sure? Okay.
That doesn't sound familiar.
Well, that was good because I didn't know about that.
509 Adventure says a just random pod of you guys talking about whatever would be cool. I'd watch it.
This is the preamble. This is why you join us live.
We should do that though. Actually, Matty and I once talked about doing a hip hop show.
Yeah, but I just forget everything though is the problem.
Too bad. I'll force you to do it.
The Copenhagen thing is called The Bombardment. It was very good, but it was basically one of those things that you don't realize happened because victors do write history to a degree, and they were going to go bomb a Gestapo headquarters, which was already holding resistance members, and then unfortunately they ended up destroying a Catholic school full of children.
That's very bad.
That's unfortunate.
Which is terrible. I don't know why.
That's really terrible.
Yeah. It's awkward.
That's
I didn't realize. Anytime I look it up, I always forget like how close people in Germany were, like how close they were to assassinating Hitler. Like just like pure.
Well, like multiple times.
Yeah, like just pure happenstance they didn't succeed. Like one guy literally had a Luger pointed at his head and could have gotten the shot off, but decided not to out of fright, like because he didn't want the repercussion.
Wow,
like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
could have done it though. Like,
yeah, still do it, man. Yeah, your life isn't as
war is bad. There's no real victors in war. Are we an anti-war podcast?
We are officially an anti-war.
Yeah, let's make the declaration right now. We are an anti-war podcast.
Maddie, you should have asked me.
Getting rid of Hitler was a pretty good idea.
What if one of us was pro-war and you didn't even ask us?
Yeah, right. You just assumed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway. Damn it.
Yeah.
But I think I think I'm anti-war. Matty, you anti-war?
Yeah.
Griff anti-war.
I'm anti-war. It's just the principle of asking me first is really what I'm after here, Matty.
All right. Well, that's 3 for 3. So I guess we are indeed an anti-war podcast. So
officially starting now,
right?
Because
now.
we voted on it
right this second. Yep.
We're also anti-bad defense.
Great transition, Griff. I think that marks the start of the podcast. Matty, you should do the intro thing.
Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where we have our final tape review of the season. Yes, we're going to be delving in to the Seahawks 49ers wildcard matchup tape, exploring a lot of what went wrong, some of what went right. And don't worry, after this, we will have season reviews, we will have off-season talk, we'll have draft stuff. But this game, in a way, was kind of a nutshell of the Seahawks' own season, a whole season. Griff,
Yeah.
how do you agree with that statement? Was it all things coming to a head?
I don't know. I view this game separately from the rest of the regular season because I don't know. They had huge problems, but then they also had a lot of things go right for them, and they were getting better while sustaining like weak spots throughout the season. And I just feel like this game, the way it happened, it didn't really connect to a lot of the things that happened in the regular season. Like I couldn't draw a line and connect the dots. I feel some stuff certainly, but with all in all, like, you didn't have Brooks out there. Ryan Neal probably shouldn't have played. He wasn't 100%. He was not nowhere near as what Abrams was giving them. Abrams probably should have started. Tariq Woolen probably had the worst game of his season, and a lot of their really good pass defense overall from like week 6 on hinged on having really good corner play out of their right corner spot. So when the guy that occupies that spot all of a sudden has his worst game of the season, well, like there goes the whole premise of you being a competitive defense, a big part of it anyway, right? And then I thought Cody Barton was playing really well for most of the season this year, and then he has a really bad game. So it's like, okay, everything that our hopes were pinned on unraveled this game, and I don't feel like this game needs to define what they were and what they have to build on. So it's a cop out, but like I kind of in my mind I just throw this game out. Like they had a tweaked game plan, which I saw the theory behind, given who they were playing and given that they were undermanned, but it was still kind of dumb in hindsight. There's still some positives to draw from. I actually thought the individual play of like 3 or 4 guys on the inside was actually decent. I thought Woods, Harris, and Puna actually all played pretty well. I thought Shelby Harris got some pressure. He didn't really hold up in the run game. But that's kind of to be expected. LJ Collier didn't really do anything, unfortunately. Thought Miles Adams did. He looked like he belonged. So like their issues again were kind of like schematic, like we've talked about for the most part, and the linebackers are in disarray. I mean, Shanahan threw everything at them. And again, with that Brooks out there and like the corners not knowing what to do on perimeter runs, it's just like, whatever, punt it, get healthy, add players to the line of scrimmage, and then go get them next year.
Real quick on Woolen, I don't want to excuse, I don't want to excuse his poor play on just this, but he did hurt his ankle in that game the week before. I wonder how much that did impact him. Did that seem like it was impacting him at all?
I mean, it could have. So like his catch-up speed was there. It was just he gave up so much separation at the break. It's entirely possible that his ankle, his ability to plant and drive, and change direction was impacted. Maybe once he gets going, it can build up some steps. He can get his long speed back. So maybe that's why he was giving up so much separation on those dig routes and over routes. But I thought part of it was like alignment, and then his eyes not being in the right place, not feeling the break, which is just so hard to do. But then maybe there is the physical element. Now, also further, because he knew he was maybe physically hobbled, he felt like he had to be more conservative with what decisions he was making, because he didn't want to give up anything deep. So maybe that also affected him mentally, like kind of things compound. So
his eyes were a mess. And the defense that they're running under weak rotated cover 3, that there are occasions where the cornerback is tasked with playing down at the line of scrimmage to be like a force defender away from where the Sam's down. If they bring a tight end to the open side, or what would have been the open side before the tight end gets there, but an extra gap. And Woolen was caught looking in the backfield a lot. Also under 6, where he's like the cloud force cornerback. That's a situation where there's less conflict. But if he's got a cover 3 deep third responsibility, and he's also meant to be the guy then forcing a run back inside if it legitimately, then he sort of gets mixed up in situations where he didn't have to be the force defender as well. And this has happened all season to a degree, but this game, Shanahan just didn't let him off the hook. He just kept going at it, and eventually they reaped rewards. Like Woolen's early pass breakup, his eyes are wrong, and he's beat, but he recovers. Then later in the game, he gets beat and he doesn't recover, and his eyes are wrong. So.
And granted, like that's kind of Shanahan, like the play calls themselves, the lines drawn on the page are fairly simple and like not that diverse in terms of what he called this game. But the way he gets everything to pop is that the play side of the concept, he'll combine that with different like zone flow direction, and then the quarterback like turning around at different directions as well, like just combining like different flow, different quarterback turn, and then whether it's a boot, a half boot, or pocket play action with the same play calls, and then just reversing the play. And then just the second level can't get a beat on, where the play's headed, but the design itself isn't conflicting players. It's all keys at the line of scrimmage. It's crazy because he really, like, again, the number of plays he called were few in number. He called like called like 3 plays like 5 times each really this game.
Yeah. I think what upset me was like Shanahan did call a great game, and he spammed a lot of the same concepts as he said, Griff, but from slightly different looks, and dressed things up in a way which was problematic. Like the catch Woolen gave up was the quarterback faking to the same side and then throwing, so like waggle rather than boot, which I think is noteworthy. But the lack of detail this deep into the season from the defense, it just is upsetting in like the way they execute. So Pete Carroll mentioned how young they were as a team, but like it's veteran players who made mistakes like this. So if we get the tape going, this is an early example of the problem. So at 8:02 in the first quarter, a 1st and 10.
Are we bringing this up on screen? Okay.
Yes, that patience is a virtue. So, as I clear my throat. So, basically, Seattle's playing middle field open coverage. It's cover 2 over here, I believe. So, cover 2 at the top of the screen. And then away is cover 4, which is just a basic call. They've run this kind of thing all year. Not a big deal. Now, the 49ers, a big thing they do is shift to create a more advantageous matchups, to create stress points in the defense. And Seattle didn't adjust as much to shifts as I'd have expected in terms of like resetting their front, even if it was the run strength changing, which, again, that caused issues. But here, Bruce Irvin, because this is a slot, he walks out. He was down at the line of scrimmage in the 5 down look. He walks out and plays over.
And that's Juice, right? Forming the slot.
Yes, it's Juice. It's Juice check, yeah. So Irvin, because he's got this guy, he's the quarter flat player, and to help out Quandre Diggs, who's in the deep quarter, and to help out Woolen, and also because he might have to run with a wheel route, he needs to be in a position to cover down on the slot. And this is the way they've played it. This is the way they want to play this year. Of course, it gives them 3/2 by doing this. Now, to accommodate that, the edge is obviously soft because Bruce Irvin is now not down at the line of scrimmage. He's up in the slot. So to accommodate that, the guy who would ordinarily have been a 3 technique would typically, as we've seen, as a lot of teams do, like Aranda does the same thing, they'd bump this defensive tackle into a 4-eye. So rather than being on the outside shoulder of the guard, he'd go to the inside shoulder of the tackle. But you can see here Jefferson doesn't do that. And I will get you to the end zone angle. Glimpse of how long this run was. Here comes Irvin walking with juice check. He starts looking at Quinton Jefferson. I don't know if any gestures as though he's trying to tell him, but he doesn't, right? Or maybe he's not even doing that. But the point being, Jefferson remains on the outside shoulder of the guard as a 3 technique, not as a 4-eye. Now, why that's a problem, especially against a great play caller like Shanahan, is it leaves the C gap super, super weak. And Shanahan, of course, found a way to crease the C gap with this play call in an impressive fashion. And if you'd had a 4-eye on the play, and we'll go through it, but if you'd had a 4-eye on the play, it would have really helped out because it would have kept the tackle from doing certain things. But you can't play with a 3 tech and a walked out outside linebacker like this. It doesn't work. And they were sort of asking for this to happen.
In a perfect world, I think Bruce folds in, but the way that like folds inside of Williams, but the angle he's coming at, the angle
you can't do that.
Yeah.
So what would a 4-eye do? Well, if we draw up how it's blocked, because the tackle, rather than having a guy on him, because the tackle doesn't need to worry about this 3 technique, the tackle is able to go out to Bruce, and then juice check, rather than blocking Bruce, is able to come up and seal the Cody Barton, and they're able to just run it up this big area. But if you'd had a guy on the tackle, then suddenly that either the tackle has to block him, which buys time for everyone else, then means juice check probably has to block Bruce. And then suddenly the linebackers are kept clean as well, and you're in a much better position. Because if I just play this through again,
but then doesn't the left guard become a little bit of a problem in that instance, or?
Well, they're running so far outside that, yeah, sure, the left guard can climb up to the linebacker, but it's an easier leverage for the for the linebacker. The linebacker can get over the top of it.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, good question. Whereas this guy can just pin, juice check. He's got the angles advantage. And you can see here at this point also Jefferson, who's kind of in a liability against the run in general, he even managed to get kind of reach blocked at 3 technique. Like, okay, he's keeping the guard off guys, but not the best play. And so you can already see how this path is being created. And they even pulled Kittle around as well to really clear out this C-gap area. But if they'd played it with a 4-eye, as they should have, or as they have throughout the season in their scheme, Barton would be the guy meeting Kittle, and then there might be a shot of if the 4-eye had stayed in the C-gap making the play, Muse is slow coming along, they also might have run it down from the backside. You just don't know because they didn't play it like that, and that's how they, in theory, have been playing things, but they just didn't play it like that, and the crease is just way too wide. The C-gap gets super wide because of it.
I think, I think they didn't really have a check plan for a slot formation being formed by the fullback, basically, for this personnel package.
But he walked out. It should just be simple that he's walked out to cover a number 2 detached from the core. You should bump to a 4-eye. So then, to sort of illustrate this point of how they're just not executing, and Jefferson is a veteran, Bruce Irvin is a veteran, right? 2nd and 13, 6:59 in the first quarter on the same drive. Seattle defending inside their red zone. Now, Bruce Irvin walks out to cover down on the slot. But notice how close he plays. Again, it's the same thing of we have cover 4 over here. Bruce Irvin's the quarter flat player. And we have cover 2 away with Barton as the middle hook defender. And Seattle's defense managed to sort of contain the 49ers in the first half, but honestly, like, they were so close to giving up a lot more points. Like, they really, it was bad throughout, really. So now Jefferson has accommodated Bruce by playing in a 4-eye. Maybe it's because it was a slot receiver, not a fullback forming the slot, but that's what's happened. And Bruce goes to play with power, but because he makes this technique choice, he ends up getting beat very, very quickly by that's Ayuk, right? 11.
Yeah.
Now, because typically Cody Barton's job would be to relate to the 3 receiver, which is McCaffrey, who's a dangerous guy, right? But because Bruce has been beat across his face, which is the one job as a quarter flat player, because it's a middle field open coverage, because you've got help to the outside, you have to be the inside presence. But Bruce just got beat quick in his jam. And that meant Barton had to melt over to the first slant route where Purdy was looking, right? That saw McCaffrey completely uncovered because Tanner Muse was matching the seam of George Kittle, makes sense, in the cover 2. And it just created so much space and room. And again, it's like, why are we not executing these techniques? You watch a Shanahan offense and everyone is so fine-tuned of how they execute a play. Whereas here, Bruce is suddenly lining up way closer than he was on that last play as in a quarter flat. Jefferson suddenly decided, okay, I'm going to play 4-eye now. Barton's having to make up for a bit of stuff, but also he really shouldn't be focused. Okay, he's melting the quarterback's eyes, but he should not. I guess he sees the receiver open, but really he should be thinking running back. It's so inconsistent.
I mean, he does have to play his hook first if he has a threat in the hook. But yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of this too is like a coverage beater. Like 3 week versus quarter half can be really, really devastating.
Sure, but you can't. Basically, Bruce letting the guy across his face is bad.
No, I mean,
I don't know why he line's so close. It's just because he wants to get hands on immediately, I guess. But like, you can't let that happen.
He just clearly is uncomfortable. He hasn't done a lot of this in his career either.
Which is also why they don't play bear as much. But anyway, or would be their reasoning for it. So that was just slightly annoying. There's a lot of plays which have a kind of weird theme to them. Griff, do you have a timestamp or shall I?
I do not. So just let it rip.
Time to vibe out.
Well, we should say that Seattle's 3rd down plan in the first half, I guess that was kind of the major difference from the first half to the second half in terms of what Seattle did. Like they largely played cover 1 rat, so man-to-man defense with a post safety and then a player in the low hole. Purdy was really struggling in the first half, and Shanahan gave him a lot of kind of routes over the middle, and Purdy tried to beat the rat there and didn't get there. You remember Barton's outstretched almost pick, and Tanner Muse had a pass break up as well. Then in the second half, Shanahan came back with some better beaters where they were sort of more to the perimeter. Purdy made more of the throws. Ryan Neal got picked on. Again, Griff spoke about how he didn't look healthy. And also Kobe Bryant had some difficulties too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cover 1 rat on 3rd down. So that definitely seemed like what they had the best process in defensively. probably just speaks to their raw ability to cover guys. I mean, the secondary, I mean, they can stick with dudes, and like they had good rat play out of Barton and Muse. So, you know, I let Woolen and Jackson press, which is probably their strength overall too. Yeah.
Yeah. So the big route that was like constantly beating Seattle was the deep dig route of play action. So if we look at why that became a thing, I've said a lot of the year that Seattle's cover 3 rules for bootleg plays and by nowhere near as effective as they have been in the past, nowhere near as brushed up on. And in our season review, Griff will share some exciting data on Seattle's cover 3 where it shows that they've been good, but
it's complicated though.
It is complicated, and for this kind of attack that they're facing, it was not there. And in the past, they've had much better play from the hook droppers to find the deep dig route, especially on the back end of 2021, where it looked like they'd fixed things. This game, they played a fair, where they sprinkled in bear fronts a bit more to when in the past they'd just been playing under. I presume to try and remove some of the bubbles and give time and better angles for the hook droppers to find the over route, but it just didn't happen. So if we start with 1st and 10, 11:33 left in the second quarter. Right. So formationally, you get this kind of gun look. But again, another shift, another motion, more playing. And you can see how Tariq Woolen, I think this is one where his eyes get caught in the backfield. Yeah. So that dig is wide. Well, it's not really a dig. This is more of like an over route, or race route. But that over route is wide ass open. I don't know why Purdy didn't throw it because he's not actually that good.
Yeah. He wants to throw a touchdown. He sees Diggs nailing down, but he's got a wide open completion.
Yeah.
He should have just taken the over route.
Yeah. I don't know why. What's Neil complaining about? Is he complaining about lineman downfield? Or false start?
I don't know. And what's weird is this is the first time all game Diggs actually looks to nail down on some of this 2-route stuff.
I think it's just because it's wide open.
Yeah, because he sees nobody. Yeah.
But this is a poor play from Woolen. But also the hook droppers are like not even there.
Right. I mean, yeah, you get the corner in the fit, and it gets him thinking twice when he sees the backfield mesh.
And Debo does sell this pretty well as a fake block.
Yeah.
But this is technically Woolen's responsibility. But we'll get to some plays which illustrate sort of the lack of weak hook, like consistent play as well. I have literally 12 plays of which have dig and it not not being picked up. So literally the first play of the game, actually, and this is what I meant about how it could have been a lot worse. So 12:35 left in the first quarter. Obviously, Purdy missed that last chance that we talked about as well. Here you have a pistol look and a shift again. Seattle's just playing under weak rotated cover 3. And okay, it's a 7-man protection. So it's tricky because the linebackers are seeing all this backfield action.
And like also that's their coverage too, are those guys in the backfield.
Yeah. Their main coverage responsibility is staying in. So, you know, it's not necessarily, well, at least until they've released, but yeah.
Right.
Not necessarily their thing. But what Seattle would do in the past is they'd say, okay, if your guy stays in, if you're the weak hook player, which technically is Tanner Muse on this play, because they're dropping Bruce Irvin. He's like the wait, have I got that right?
No, you're right.
Yeah. They're dropping Bruce Irvin. He's like the old school Sam player. They typically have Tanner Muse. As soon as he realizes it's run, even if it's 7-man protection, he'd then just try and look back down this hash to just help as an underneath layer.
Right.
Even if 7-man, I went back and looked at old ways of playing the 49ers, and he just gets kind of lost. He doesn't do it. And again, he may not have been coached to do it. The point is, I still don't quite know how they're supposed to handle this because it's been so inconsistent and patchy.
Right. Like the way they play their rules, it hasn't been like, it feels like it changes sometimes, like the game plan a little bit, like they do it the new way than the old way.
Yep.
In the past, we've seen them. Now, this is kind of almost like it's not a burst corner route, but it's more of a true go or inside release fade anyway. Like clear out route. But in the past, against a lot of 2-man like deep route stuff, they would try to have the corner to the side of the go or post would release the post to safety and then kind of help robot the crossing route from the other side.
Yeah, he maybe he would have done that, but he couldn't with the way
because he realizes his guy keeps going. Now, one thing that is cool about this is that Tariq slow plays his go because he knows he can catch up.
Yep.
Which he's thinking, okay, if it does start to break inward, then I'll go help on that over route.
Yeah.
But obviously it doesn't, so he has to stay home. Now what's crazy is he almost makes a pick anyway. But that kind of speaks to Woolen's talent, though, and the fact that he knows how to gauge what chances to take and what chances not to take.
Yeah, definitely. And the 49ers are really good at selling play action. So typically you'd say, typically a linebacker's keying for the high hats. These hats are high-ish. This isn't the best example. I guess it's early in the game, but they're still selling run pretty damn well. And it's kind of a confidence thing for offensive line where they really start biting, then you get more and more confident with how you can play with it.
Yeah. I mean, that play, though, that we just looked at, that's 49er. I hope if Shanahan knows Purdy isn't the answer, like that's not the guy. That play right there.
Yeah. So here again, Woolen gets his eyes sort of in the backfield and he gets beat, and this is a recovery play. But you can see also how the dig is actually getting open. Okay, dig's throttles down because it's the high red zone. Sorry, I'll get you the timestamp. 11-12 in the first quarter, 1st and 10. Again, if I just draw it up for everyone, it's they create trips technically, but which is noteworthy because in the old system, again, Tanner uses the weak hook, would be really keen the 3. He'd be alert for the fact that he'd have to carry a bender back, but also off play action, he basically runs down the pipe to look for anything coming back from this guy or, this guy across the field. I'm getting closer and closer to drawing an inappropriate object.
Matty, get your head out of the gutter.
No, it's not in the gutter.
What are you seeing that we aren't seeing?
Yeah.
It's like,
why does your head go there?
Is it a Freudian slip? The Rosark test. There you go. Anyway. But yeah, this is a bad play from Woolen, but you can see again how like Cody's in tune to it, and it might be that they ask only one linebacker to do it, and it's like the strong hook with the way that the coverage pushes. But again, it's so inconsistent. Cody's kind of doing it, but not really. Because it's the high red zone, it does change things. But again, get used to it. So, wow, there's so many. Okay, so 13-14 in the second quarter. We haven't looked at this, right? So again, the shift into 2x2. A lot of these kind of split flow stuff. So they'd pull a guard, or they'd have the U off, the Y off, often juice check, but sometimes Kittle going across the formation just to get the linebackers flowing lateral and maybe slightly down as well, but thinking a bit more of run. I think this one they actually complete. Woolen, you can see out of the cut is also slower breaking with the cut. The receiver will just end inside, which makes it a bit more difficult. They actually play this one better in terms of Cody Barton. This is more on Woolen's athleticism being dwindled, I'd say.
Yeah, and this one is tough too because they're thinking the play is going to be reversed. Like they think like
a throwback.
Right, it's like a throwback. They think Ayuk running the dig. They think he's going to be running the post or go, or corner, and as whatever the case may be. And then the receiver at the bottom will be the one running the dig, but it's the reverse. So like they're trying to go, okay, if it's zone action to my left, then I need to roll over to my right and find the crossing route going that direction.
Which is what Cody does.
Right. So it's like, this is what I meant earlier by like Shanahan mixing up the combination. Like it's the same play. It's the same pattern on downfield. It's just combined with different, tendency. Yeah. And it's just him manufacturing free yards. Cause this is even like, if they played this way right here, like they did on one of those other plays, they might've defended it. Right. And like forced a check down.
Yeah.
So like the only way it works really is if the corner can make a play. And, one game that always comes to mind where a team activated their corners, even in cover 3, and kind of took some pressure off of their linebackers was the Chris Richard Cowboys against the Rams in either 2018 or 2019. And it was one game where I watched, I was like, wow, Seattle needs to sign Chidobe Awuzie, because they had him and who was their corner? Byron
Murphy?
Yeah, Byron Murphy. Was that him? I don't know what happened. Right. Is he still in Miami? I don't know.
Yeah, he got paid.
Yeah. So anyway, they had those two guys chasing inbreakers all game, and they just said, linebackers, just plug your gaps, defend Gurley, and have the corners chase. And it was cover 3. It wasn't cover 1. It was cover 3. And they managed to make this work. But they let them play really aggressive. They even pressed them and stuff. So, which tells you they weren't worried at all about anything deep, right? Like they were just trying to squeeze on stuff. They were willing to give up, maybe because it was, short splits, right? Like if you miss, you could throw up an easy fade down the sideline.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and for newer listeners, this was like a big finding this kind of. I mean, this dig was very deep from Shanahan in this game, but finding the kind of crossing route of play action was a big problem for Seattle's cover 3, which they had to find ways to try and fix over the years, and like staggering the hooks, playing like a similar game plan to Fangio and Belichick in that Rams Super Bowl game, and 6-1 fronts. Then finding the kind of bare front deal and doing it that way. But like this was a game where it's almost like they just didn't expect it to happen as much as it did. He said they really played the run, and it's all about emphasis week to week and like indicators and what you're really like trying to ramp up. And I just don't think Seattle spent the time. Well, they clearly, I hope not, because it didn't look like it. So here's another one.
So, but like right off the bat though, it's 11 personnel, but it's under center, and like they're in the 2-4-5, right? Nickel over G, even space. They're not in bear, and it's just like them totally abandoning their nickel bear package there, or nickel tight, either one, whatever. 3-3-5 is gone. It's all 2-4-5.
And you can see Tannemu's is technically the strong hook. He sort of becomes he is still the strong hook. And again, it's kind of the change up of who's running what, but Muse doesn't get enough depth really to this. He's sort of so worried about the back. Barton's trying to find it. It is very deep. And Woolen is slow out the cut. Slower than we've seen, certainly.
Yeah.
And what Seattle would do in past years as well is they would occasionally play press bail to this single receiver to get them tighter to the cut and tighter leverage-wise horizontally as well as vertically.
I just don't understand though Tariq's alignment though. Like why? Like
so
it's like
wide.
he's trying to protect like a blaze out, but this isn't Matt Ryan and Julio Jones.
And remember the road game at the 49ers, there were similar issues to this where the alignment was like too wide, and we were like sort of questioning about his zone bail stuff.
Right. So. And I guess this would be a question for like Carl Scott, but like I feel like Carl Scott like he had a stellar year because again overall Tariq Woolen's been great, but there are some things like this, and then things the way the corners play the run game, where they're pulled in, like not knowing the fundamentals of how to crack replace and not knowing how to space themselves when it's like duo, how to squeeze down the line and stuff. It just seems like really sloppy. Like that's one question I do have, stuff like that.
Yeah, so how connected is the ideas, like with the technique, with the scheme?
Right.
And then here, 108 second quarter. Again, that 11 personnel being matched, and it is sort of more understandable. But still, with the 2-4-5 look and dime, because it's the end of the half situation.
Right. I mean, that makes sense then. End of half, yeah.
This isn't play action. This is just a deep dig, but the same kind of root concept. I don't know what Jonathan Abrams doing.
Yeah, I have no idea. Now, and that kind of undercuts what I was saying earlier about how I thought Abrams was playing well. Now, I don't think Abrams had been playing a hook, though. He had primarily been a seam flat player.
Yeah, which again...
So like, I would rather have had Neil playing the hook, because Neil can play a hook fine. And then have Abrams do what he was doing the past month, where he's been playing good football.
He should be the kind of 3 player. They even create a trips kind of look here, but he should be just getting on this. But again, we don't know what the emphasis was, and you got to presume it wasn't that.
Yeah, and they probably want Neil carrying Kittle, not It is drop 8, it looks like.
And again, Woolen is so wide. The problem, I think, for him was how they stemmed. They took like the first 2 steps were like an inside release from the receiver, and he just didn't seem to adjust to that when it happened. Like, look, watch the first steps of this like this, and Woolen just drops straight back. He doesn't. He doesn't tighten his leverage.
Mirror it. Yeah.
Which again, an eye thing maybe. Mirrors it late.
Maybe he's thinking smash, given,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me hazarding a guess at that point. Do we have the 4 strong play with Ryan Neal?
Early in the game? Or...
Yeah, that was probably a timestamp I should have.
But it was early in the game.
So
is it this one, or is it? I have 2.
It's a touchdown.
Okay, yeah, I know the one.
It's, I think, a Debo touchdown.
So 11:05 in the first quarter, 2nd and 10, just outside the red zone.
Oh no, I don't think it's this one.
If it's a Debo touchdown, the Debo touchdown was like the second to last touchdown of the game.
Okay. Yeah, it was the boot. It was the 4 strong boot.
Oh yeah.
Back.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I'll get to it, because interestingly, like, Neil handled a similar play fine, but like Shanahan had sort of planted the seed in his mind that, hey, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this, and we're not going to throw it, and then we do throw it. So I can't believe this was a touchdown. Oh, and sort of as a follow up to David Crockett, who asked in our post game live show about why there were so many one-on-one tackling situations. It was more like in one rat stuff where Seattle's in man-to-man, so you have a man, so you've got to make your tackle on your man. But there wasn't as many, I don't think. It was more that multiple people missed their tackles.
and bad angles too. Like
awful angles.
They weren't, and like, honestly, like, I really, the tackle point to me doesn't seem like as big of an issue as the angle you're taking, because you're not in a good position to make a good tackle.
Yeah.
Like you're not. No one's going to be able to arm tackle Debo Samuel. You need to make sure your whole body's lined up for it.
Yeah.
And they weren't lined up.
Let's break that down. But you want to talk about this play, Griff? So, in whatever terms, Seattle's in cover 3. Neil is like the curl flat player. you might hear this called 6 skate. It's under, front, weak, cover 3, sky. And Neil is a curl flat player with everyone away. He doesn't have a 2 out immediately. He becomes the 4 to first crosser player, right, Griff?
Yeah. So in the 4 to first crosser, meaning if flow is away from him, that means the first guy coming back would technically be the final 4, and he would have, or become the new final 4, and he would have to take that route back, essentially match it. Or if everything is going to his left, then he would take, including that weak 1 receiver, then he would nail down, well, not nail down, but he would leverage that crosser, that first crosser. So,
yeah, because of how the coverage matches.
Right. So basically,
everyone's run off. So then,
like he has no weak flat. He has no flat threat.
Yeah.
He has no flat threat coming from the weak side, so that means his eyes need to look strong and look for the first thing coming back at him. So like all 4 guys are going that direction. Tariq Woolen would be essentially in man on his receiver, so Neil doesn't need to worry about him so much. So then that crossing route that comes, so Neil will be the final 4, Muse will be the final 3, and 19 right there, Debo. Neil's already overran it. Now Muse does a good job on Kittle. That's actually a really good rep for Muse on the final 3 right there. That's awesome for Muse.
Yeah, I thought Muse showed some stuff. He got away with a bit of a hook on Debo, but yeah, I thought he showed some stuff. Yeah,
like that route earlier, where he was carrying Kittle, that was a pretty good rep because he's bodying Kittle up the seam, and it's covered too. So, the middle of the field's open and that route's bending, and Muse handled it pretty well. Like here, he does a good job showing his change of direction and keeping step for step with Kittle. That's a decent rep. I think he'd be good depth to bring back next year. But like right here, like Neil just needs to understand, like, I think he just keeps eyes off of, I think he's thinking it's a run.
Yeah, and in the way that they'd fit this, what doesn't help him is he starts with a too high disguise. Like coaching point, you'd say, get your ass in the box. They've motioned into 2 back. And then in 2 back, the way that under weak rotation fits is everyone fits off the fullback. Wherever the fullback goes, this guy is the turn back player. This guy's the run through spill player. This guy looks to fit in next available gap, which would typically be on a wide toss play. It could almost be up in the C gap, So he basically he's thinking, I need to haul ass to help out my teammates, because if you pause it at the moment of the fake toss, this guy's showing a wide path on the fake toss. This guy's coming to block probably the D end. Then Barton is maybe going to get blocked by the tackle here, or the tight end. The point being, Neil thinks he needs to be the extra fitter, which he didn't, because it's play action. Shanahan's got him on this play before, as he himself admitted. So, it sucks, but Shanahan messes with people. And this is why, I mean, a lot of safeties would make this error, but also, Neil is a backup. And he's not an all-pro.
It's bad at every juncture here.
And again, I don't get the coaching. Like, just get your ass in the box. Why are we messing around? It's 21 personnel. Surely the detail is that thing about the details.
Right.
But I know it all happens fast. Right, and let's choose this as a tackling point. Because I wrote down tracking in my notes. So Kobe Bryant had a really poor day tackling. 2nd and 10, 11 and 6 in the second quarter. Again, look, a lot of these clips are first half stuff, to our point. So they motion into 2x2. It's unfollowed. And Seattle's just running weak rotated cover 3 again, what they'd call cover 9. Or is this one rat? Yeah, no, it's weak rotated cover 3. And it's a good play. Like, and the way they play it is Seattle on defense. Cheese is the 3-up is 3 player. Barton's in the strong hook, but Cheese is going to take this route vertical, and that's why he starts opening his hip to start man turning that. So that's fine. Like they played it all fine. And then it's check down underneath, and then when you're playing this kind of defense, you have to make the tackle. And to me, like if you just watch the tracking of Kobe Bryant here, it just doesn't make any sense. Like this is something which not just him's made this kind of mistake, but if we played a play through, right, the ball's caught by Kittle here, and Kobe Bryant's here. He knows he has help in the hook from Cheese, so it kind of an inside fitter. He knows he has Barton who's going to press the play. So Bryant should be tracking the near hip, right? But what he does is he, for some reason, pursues upfield on this play and gets in a very poor leverage position to make this tackle. He ends up lunging and he's beat to the outside. Like the one thing he cannot do is let Kittle to the outside. He's the outside player in this open field pursuit. His angle of attack just doesn't make sense. And it puts him in a position where he misses. There's all kinds of things in this game, like not wrapping up. Yeah. The end zone angle might be good for just showing how but Barton's pressing the guy who can press the hip here. Bryant is way too far upfield in his pursuit angle. Like the fact that, it's just bad. But
yeah, and this I feel like is another learning moment for Kobe Bryant, because he's still kind of a fish out of water at nickel. Like he finds himself in positions on the field that he's never found himself before. Like the way he peels off that wheel route and then he's, reacting to a shallow coming his way. Like he's never related to players on the field, like that before. So it's kind of, I think, an example of, he may never be a great tackler, but it's something that he can just get a lot better at, I think, probably just by virtue of experience. But, like he's been a perimeter corners his whole football career to this point. So,
yeah. Okay. So that's kind of the defense. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to comment. And if you want to know what happened on a certain play, but the run defense was kind of positive, but it's sort of about what they had to give to make that happen, and the fact that they were rather vanilla in their calls, right, Griff? Like, they still lack the kind of added wrinkles on top of that.
I mean, they're a very vanilla defense right now. They don't have.
It's like a preseason defense.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But again, I don't want like this game to completely frame how we feel about the defense in general, because like there are still some significant issues, but like there was a lot of things going for them, up to this point. Like they came off 2 really good games against the Jets and Rams, and granted those offenses are in dire straits, but like, they still like did the things that they can control way better than they did this game.
Yeah, although I think they just sort of got found out in their simplistic approach. Like I think and their lack of details in certain areas, because they've been scrambling to. It's like we've seen all season. It's come in waves. The improvements,
right?
Regression, because they've had to run they've had to go with like 3 different approaches. Like
right.
So we have a question here from Duxonomous. Do you think that's a Pete thing or a young player thing? Seems like by the end of the season there should be more complexity.
Well, it's sort of what I was saying about how they had to go, because what they were doing wasn't working. They sort of had to establish a different kind of base to the one they were planning on.
Yeah.
So it was very simple. It was weak rotated under with like the occasional weak rotated under cover 3, under cover 6 for like their base approach, with then you could pirate stunt for a slot, and then you could have a strong safety blitz and play 3 deep 3 under. That was it for base defense. And the 49ers are in 12 personnel and 21 personnel, the stuff that Seattle wanted to play base to, even 22 personnel a lot of the time, and you have 3 calls. So
I mean,
under cover 1 to the tight end. But and not only do you have 4 calls, right? But also you don't just have calls in the game, but you have like tweaks on those calls. You have more. You can add some juice to them to make them pop in a certain way.
Right.
Seattle just didn't have that.
It's stuff they defended last year and had answers for last year.
Yeah, they had a lot of answers, and like it's stuff that when they ran this, because this is what they ran on defense in 2012 to 2019, right? When they ran this in the past, they had more answers. They had an adjustment for if the offense was in a slot formation, for instance, where they'd play cover 2, but with a post safety, which was cool. And yet they didn't do that. They didn't have that in the book. They just didn't have it. So they're just scrambling. Earlier in the season, they were running. They tried to fall back into bare fronts, but they didn't have enough of that. And then they abandoned it again, which we'll talk about in our review. But they've basically run three different approaches on defense this year, and each time they've added a new approach, it's been simplistic because it's sort of scrambling to solve an issue, and you can't do that. And then when they faced 11 personnel, all they did was weak rotated cover 3, and then occasionally half quarter or quarter half on a passing down. But it was like, again, you've got 3 calls. Occasionally you'd pirate stunt to solve an issue, but very, very rarely. They had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. And then a bonus fire zone if the game plan allowed for it. But that was it.
Last year, I think they were able to, because Ken Norton Jr., people thought he was vanilla, but he had so much scheme and he introduced different calls and stuff. I think the reason why what they did last year was so conducive to adding new things. Like that's why when they tweaked the scheme, like enhanced the match rules and stuff, it was so easy for them to do that because they played so much bear. That remained their like common denominator, like a schematic pivot point, and it made adding things into those looks easier. Because this year, and again, we're going to talk about this in the season review episode next week, because they were so committed to playing this 2-4-5 front against 11 personnel, it meant that if they had issues in that front, they had to drop that safety down and just play like, put fires out, gapped out in the box, right? One high. But then also because they spent so much time in that world in general, that meant that when they were in bear was less extensive. It had less, counter punches. And then that also made some of the bear stuff regress a little bit too. So it was kind of this, like they twisted themselves into a knot. So it wasn't like they could just keep throwing stuff in to fix it. It was more like they had to just hunker down, and their only natural solution was getting more and more simple, which that might have made individual play better, but then it still meant, like you said, eventually when you run into a big fish, you're going to get found out. It probably speaks to the fact that they defended the Chiefs so well. It probably speaks really well of like the floor of their talent, that they can handle it when they're playing their stuff well. But eventually, asking for a repeat performance of that probably isn't likely. So yeah, I mean, to me, this year is just a combination of injuries and like, a young defensive staff that just wasn't quite ready to handle, not able to handle coaching what they needed to coach to make the 2-4-5 stuff work to the extent that they wanted it to work, and then not being able to respond to setbacks really well. If Pete could have done a do-over, he probably would have gone back in time to that Bucs game and said, we're just going to live in bear again, and we're going to just keep adding in scheme there and forget.
I don't understand. Like the Bucs were notorious for running the ball quite a bit. And Seattle went into that game thinking that their tenants. They said that the tendencies changed.
Yeah,
I mean, I went all the way to Germany, and after asking about Bear, and they basically ran 2 for 5, and got absolutely run on the whole damn game. And you saw some awful interior defensive line play from guys who technically they were not comfortable with what they were being asked to do. Lo and behold, what was big with the Bear change that's in the season. They do less of the mirror stepping 4-eye gap and half /2 gap play. They run more 3-tech power stepping play into the guard. Oh, but no, when we're in nickel, we're going to ask you to mirror step as a 2-eye, even though we've got the numbers advantage. We're gapped out in the box. But we'll ask you to do that anyway and try and play gap and half, even though we're gapped out.
So like, even though that Bucks game though is still super important because like they defended well the runs that the Bucks had ran up until that point, even in the 2-4-5. It was when they started calling out all their scheme breakers, their tendency breakers that they weren't prepared for. The numbers, like the ground gives out from underneath them.
Was that the gap game? Like
that was when they ran a bunch of like gun counter, gun power, gun trap. Against inside zone and duo that game, they held them to like 2.3 yards per carry. But it just speaks to the fact that they don't have the fire zones on the call sheet to just call. Like, all right, we got to slip back into Bear, and when they run when they run stuff to the bubble, right? we'll throw movements at it. Like, they just don't have that. Ken Norton Jr. would have that in his back pocket every single game, and he didn't do a lot of it, but it was there, and it was when they needed it. They literally don't have it now. Like, the last time I remember them calling a fire zone out of any odd space front, Bear, tight, or the combinations they ran, like with the checks, was like in the fourth quarter of the Jets game, and it was one time and it worked.
No, well,
and then the time before that was against the Raiders, and
against the Rams, they did run nickel over like cover 2 fire zone.
They had some stuff in there, even stuff as well, but like, I don't know. It's so the stuff that we get into next week is going to be really revealing, because while I do think they need to add talent, I really think talent is the bottom of the list of problems in terms of explaining how disastrous it's been. Like, ceiling is another question, but they absolutely have the talent at every level, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, to be way better than this. Than what we're seeing.
I agree with that, but
so there will be some rants next week, but also, I mean, I kind of frame all this with a positive mind, because this stuff is so staggeringly obvious. We can assume the coaching staff knows that, and given the words that Pete spoke in his recent press conferences,
frustration,
I mean, it seems really obvious what they're going to do next year, and it's just going to be a kind of like the perfect, ideally, hopefully, the right combination between 2021 and 2022 scheme with this new fledgling talented secondary, of which there are some really promising numbers there, and then their ability to really finally add a pass rusher or two that is considered, universally accepted as a really high-end player. And then I think they'll be roaring next year. But we'll really unpack that next time.
So, do we have time to talk about the offense? I guess briefly, they played pretty damn well. The fumble was unfortunate. You'd like it maybe to be tucked higher up, but it was tight. It was just a good play. It's unfortunate how they got in that circumstance. But really, I felt in the circumstances against a very talented offense, it's a real shame that the defense just collapsed, because the offense was in this game.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, the protection was admirable, probably about as good as you could ever expect out of this group this year against that front, especially after they've been struggling. It was nice to see Lucas end the year on a solid game, not a great game, but a solid one. Cross put up a fight against a lot of different body types, handling, Bosa, then Omenahu, then Ebukam, like those are 3 different types of dudes. Obviously all ranging in ability, but also ranging in style too, right? And he did well. Damian Lewis did fine. I mean, they played admirably. I thought DK Metcalf had a great game. For as much as I've like not nitpick, but been kind of, I guess you could say, hard on him, like earlier in the season for not making tough catches and stuff. I mean, he made a lot of tough catches this game. I mean, he knew that if they were going to move the chains, the ball was going to have to go to him in all these contexts. I mean, he won on vertical routes. He was winning on the more possession-oriented stuff. He was winning on the backside of trips when they had to go one-on-one possession, like those deep curl routes. Like this offense replaces the backside dig route with like the backside curl or stop route to DK, right? And Gino's been hitting that a lot this year, and he hit it this game. So that was really good. And then Gino, I mean, I thought Gino was almost perfect. I mean,
yeah, I counted like one bad play other than the fumble.
Yeah, like the interception, I think is a combination of the corner not getting called for DPI.
Oh yeah,
probably a good play from the corner as well.
The game's over, man.
Yeah, and then Lockett losing his route really badly.
Yeah.
But so that's the other thing. Lockett didn't play well this game, and I don't think he was healthy. But the fact that Gino could not just have a good game, but also produce statistically on top of it. Having a good game in process and result with Lockett not being 100% was just a really great, like season capper for Gino, I think. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got.
Well, that made DK performing as well as he did all the more important, right? Because you don't have a 100% Lockett, you don't have Will Dissly, you don't have Marquise Goodwin. Like, options are very limited, weapons are very limited there. So
yeah,
right.
Ty, any questions on the offense?
We kind of went over some stuff on yesterday's episode. There's nothing that I can really think of off the top of my head. Anything you guys in the chat have for these guys before we hop off here? Send them now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, and I felt Walker, he had pretty good round blocking, but he read things well. There was one play where he was looking for the edge, but like it was guard tackled wrap, and it looked like it was going to be there. So it was an understandable decision. Other than that, he continued his improvement from the mid-season struggles. So
yeah, and the interior finally got movement on kind of the talked about like soft underbelly of the 49ers interior. I mean, Armstead's a freak, don't get me wrong, but like they don't really have dudes inside. T.Y. McGill's a good role player. Kerry Hyder is a good role player who shouldn't be playing defensive tackle. And there are opportunities inside to really get movement, and they actually moved them this game. I thought Blythe had a really good game, actually. Austin Blythe.
Yep.
I would feel, if Blythe can stay healthy, I would feel so much better about Blythe as a center if the right guard was as good as Damian Lewis. Like if they had, so they got to find that guy.
Big need.
Like they could improve on Blythe, don't get me wrong, but he could be just fine, and you could still have all the advantages of how he is at the line and communication and stuff. So
yep, agreed. There was like one shot against cover 3 that I wish or maybe it was cover 1 actually, that I wish Gino had thrown, but he was sort of trying to stay on schedule a bit more and keep the drive alive. I felt he played good situational football, really. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just unfortunate the defense melted. So there's a lot of questions here, which are great, but we will cover them in the off-season stuff. But Dr. Sedated on that subject asked, what does off-season content look like for you guys? Well, we will have, as I said at the start of the show, offense data and tape review for the season, defense tape data and tape review for the season. Then Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, who would you draft?
Yep.
Those kinds of topics, free agent recaps. I mean, we'll be watching all of these guys. We'll talk about the Senior Bowl as well with film because we'll have a virtual credential, be able to break down those guys. I have a big long list of all the draft prospects I need to watch. So yeah, just kind of transitioning to player evaluation, but also with the look back on the season. We need to talk about Pete Carroll's press conference in more detail, specifically his comments on the defense. John Schneider also spoke today, I think it was, but he spoke today or maybe yesterday, and his comments are interesting in the main as well. We'll break down if Gino gets extended, which he should, re-signings along with the signing outside free agents. So I'm not sure how much that will happen. So
we should also talk schedule here, because the schedule is going to be switched up a little bit, right?
Yeah, we need to hash that out, but we might move to 2 a week, I guess.
Yeah, I believe we're supposed to move to 2 a week. So
I don't think so,
unless I remember. I think that was part of the agreement. All right, whatever. We'll talk about this.
No, I think I don't think they'd mind if we do 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, do we have enough content for 3 a week?
I mean, we could just watch loads of tape live.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, thanks, Dr. Sedated. Appreciate it. Hopefully only mildly sedated, right?
Yeah, only mildly. It is a Thursday night after all.
I mean, they're typing coherently, so
that's true.
That's promising. True. Yeah.
So we'll have a bunch of stuff coming. We'll, Matty and I will be doing the news roundup and chats, which for the next few weeks will probably just be chats more than news roundups. But yeah, because we basically just have to wait until the new league year starts until really anything can happen. But,
yeah. That's a good idea, Wolfpack. Yeah, we could do a mailbag.
Yeah.
Mailbag with some non-football questions, but we'll do them at the end because people get really upset. It's bad.
Some nonsense. Yeah. We definitely want to include some nonsense.
Absolute rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Everyone, take care. Have a good weekend.
Yep.
Subscribe. Look forward to watching football with no consequence.
Wait, hold on. Let's look at the likes real quick before we hop off. How many likes are we at? We are at we're at 19 likes, and we have 26 people in here. Okay, that's a much better ratio than last night.
You're stepping it up. You might be learning. That's good. Subscribe. Comment if you haven't already. If you're watching this after, commenting does help.
Mm-hmm. We've got a donation link down in the description below. All that good stuff. Check it out if you want to support the show.
5-star reviews.
5-star reviews.
Downloads. Follow Griff at C Mike Spin Move. Follow Ty at Dane Gunzelus. Follow me at Matty F Brown. Follow the pod at Seattle Overload. I think I already said that. It's late. Let's get off.
And we're still all on Brian Reynolds' watch.
That's right. Please don't let Tommy Listella be the final bet. Please don't let Tommy Listella be the final bet. Please don't let Tommy